Captain Hannah walked through the cargo bay of the mining ship Endurance like she did every morning. She checked the supply boxes and made sure everything was safe for their long trip through space. The ship had been flying for 3 months now, carrying metals and supplies to the mining stations at the edge of human space. Something moved behind the food containers. Hannah stopped walking. She heard a small sound like a tiny motor running. She moved closer to the boxes and looked behind them. 2 bright green eyes stared back at her from the shadows. "What in the stars?" Hannah said quietly. A small orange cat stepped out from behind the boxes. It was thin but not sick-looking. The cat sat down and looked at Hannah like it belonged there. Its fur was a bright orange color with white spots on its chest and paws. "How did you get here, little one?" Hannah asked. The cat just blinked slowly at her. It had somehow lived in their cargo bay for 3 months without anyone knowing. Hannah had seen many strange things in space, but this was new even for her. First Officer Kai Park walked into the cargo bay. He was checking the morning reports on his tablet when he saw Hannah kneeling on the floor. "Captain, is everything okay?" Kai asked. Then he saw the cat. His mouth fell open. Is that a real Earth cat?" "Looks like it," Hannah said. She held out her hand to the cat. It sniffed her fingers and then rubbed its head against her palm. "He's been living here for months." Kai put his tablet down and came closer. "This is impossible. How did it survive?" "There's no food, no water source in the cargo bay." The cat started making a loud rumbling sound. Hannah had heard about this before but never experienced it. The sound was called purring, and cats did it when they were happy. "Maybe it found ways to get food from the kitchen," Hannah suggested. "Cats are smart animals." Engineer Tae Kim walked into the cargo bay carrying a toolbox. When he saw the cat, he dropped his tools with a loud crash. The cat didn't run away. It just looked at Tae with calm green eyes. "Where did that come from?" Tae asked. "We think it's been hiding here since we left Earth Station," Kai explained. Tae sat down on the floor. The cat walked over to him and started purring again. "My grandmother had a cat like this when I was little. Orange cats are supposed to be lucky." "Lucky or not, we have to follow regulations," Hannah said, but her voice didn't sound sure. "No animals are allowed on mining vessels." The cat walked back to Hannah and sat at her feet. It looked up at her with those green eyes and made a small sound like it was asking a question. "What should we call him?" asked Tae. "We're not keeping him," Hannah said quickly. But even as she said it, she reached down to pet the cat's head. "The crew will want to vote on a name," Kai said with a smile. News of the cat spread through the ship faster than air through a hull breach. By lunchtime, everyone on the Endurance knew about their unexpected passenger. The crew gathered in the main dining area to discuss what to do. "We should call him Cosmo," suggested Navigation Officer Sora Lee. "Because he's a space cat now." "I like Newton," said Communications Officer Miho Jang. "Because he survived in zero gravity for so long." "What about Lucky?" offered Medical Officer Gina Han. The crew voted and Newton won. The name seemed to fit the small orange cat who had done the impossible by surviving alone in space for 3 months. Dr. Gina Han checked Newton's health in the medical bay. "He's perfectly fine," she announced. "A little thin but no health problems. I don't know how he did it, but this cat is tough." Over the next few weeks, something strange happened to the crew of the Endurance. People smiled more. They talked to each other during meals instead of just eating and leaving. The arguments that usually happened during long space trips became less common. Newton seemed to know exactly where to be at the right time. When Engineer Tae worked late fixing broken systems, Newton would appear and sit quietly nearby. When Navigation Officer Sora felt homesick during the night shift, Newton would curl up on her lap while she worked at the controls. The ship's computer systems also began working better. The AI reported fewer errors and faster processing times. When Hannah asked the computer about this, it said, "Unknown variable has improved crew efficiency by 12%. "The unknown variable is Newton," Hannah told the computer. "Affirmative. Small Earth feline designated Newton appears to reduce crew stress levels." Even the corporate inspectors who visited the ship every few months seemed to miss seeing Newton. The cat had a talent for disappearing whenever official visitors came aboard. The crew protected their secret friend without even talking about it. Hannah found herself visiting Newton more often. The cat would sit with her in her captain's quarters while she wrote reports and made decisions about their mission. Having Newton nearby made the loneliness of command easier to bear. "You know we're breaking about 15 different regulations keeping you here," she told Newton one evening. The cat just purred and continued cleaning his orange fur. "But I guess some rules are meant to be broken," she added quietly. Newton looked at her with those wise green eyes and seemed to agree. In the cold darkness of space, sometimes the most important things couldn't be found in any rule book or regulation manual. The Endurance continued its journey through the stars, carrying its crew of tough miners, dedicated officers, and one very special orange cat who had reminded them all what it meant to care for something smaller and more vulnerable than themselves. None of them knew that their bond with Newton would soon be tested in ways they never imagined possible. The Endurance had docked at mining station Kepler 7 for repairs 3 days ago. The station was huge, with metal walls and long corridors that stretched for miles. It floated in space near a gas giant planet that glowed purple and blue in the darkness. Captain Hannah Yu was in her quarters filling out paperwork when the first alarm started ringing. It was a soft beeping sound that meant, "Pay attention." Newton sat on her desk, watching her write with curious green eyes. "Probably just another drill," Hannah said to the cat, scratching behind his ears. Then the second alarm started. This one was louder and meant, "Get ready for trouble." Newton's ears turned toward the sound, and his tail started moving back and forth. The third alarm was the one that made Hannah's blood turn cold. It was a screaming sound that meant, everyone might die. She had only heard it twice before in her 15 years in space. "All personnel report to emergency stations immediately," came the announcement over the station speakers. "Class 5 plasma storm approaching. All personnel to emergency stations." Hannah grabbed Newton and ran toward the door. Class 5 storms were rare. Class 5 storms could destroy entire space stations. She had never seen one in person. The corridors filled with people running toward the emergency bunkers deep inside the station. Humans, aliens, and robots all moved as fast as they could. The lights flickered as the storm's energy started affecting the station's power systems. Engineer Tae Kim ran up beside Hannah. "How big is this storm?" he asked, breathing hard. "Big enough to kill us all if we don't get underground fast," Hannah replied. They reached the main elevator that led to the emergency bunkers. Hundreds of people waited in line to go down to safety. The emergency bunkers were built deep inside the station, surrounded by thick metal walls that could protect them from almost anything. Newton started making worried sounds in Hannah's arms. The cat could feel something wrong in the air. Animals always knew when bad weather was coming, even in space. The elevator doors opened and people pushed forward. Someone bumped into Hannah hard and Newton jumped out of her arms in fear. The small orange cat hit the floor and immediately ran toward the upper levels of the station. "Newton!" Hannah shouted. She tried to follow him, but the crowd pushed her toward the elevator. "Captain, we have to go now." Kai Park grabbed her arm. "The storm will hit in 10 minutes. Hannah looked back down the corridor where Newton had disappeared. The cat was small and fast and already gone from sight. "I have to find him," she said. "There's no time," Kai said firmly. "The bunkers are closing in 8 minutes." The station shook as the first waves of the plasma storm reached them. Purple lightning flashed outside the windows and the lights went out completely. Emergency power kicked in, bathing everything in red light. "All personnel must reach emergency bunkers in 5 minutes, the computer announced. "Storm intensity beyond safe levels. All personnel to emergency bunkers." Hannah felt the elevator going down, taking her away from Newton. Her heart felt heavy as stone. In space you learn not to get attached to things because space always took them away. But somehow the little orange cat had become more than just a pet. He had become family. The emergency bunkers were deep underground, built like caves made of metal. Thick walls surrounded them on all sides. Air recycling systems hummed quietly, and emergency food supplies lined the walls. 300 people from the station crowded into the main bunker. Station Commander Gene Sato stood at the front of the room with a tablet showing the storm's data. "This plasma storm is the largest ever recorded in this sector. Wind speeds of 800 kilometers per hour. Lightning strikes every 3 seconds. Surface temperature of the upper station levels will reach 2000 degrees. Dr. Nara Choi, the station's head scientist, added more bad news. All electronic systems are offline. Transportation pods, environmental suits, communication devices, nothing works in this electromagnetic field." "How long will the storm last?" asked someone from the crowd. 72 hours minimum, Gene replied. "Maybe longer." Hannah sat in the corner of the bunker, staring at the ceiling. She thought about Newton somewhere in the upper levels of the station. The little cat was probably scared and alone, hiding wherever he could find shelter. "He might be okay," Kai said quietly, sitting next to her. "Cats are survivors. Look how he lived in our cargo bay for 3 months." "This is different," Hannah replied. "This storm will turn the upper levels into an oven. Nothing can live up there. Kim joined them holding a cup of hot coffee. The computer says the observatory deck where the crew saw him running has some small protected areas. Maybe he found one. But Hannah knew the truth that nobody wanted to say out loud. The observatory deck was the most dangerous place on the entire station during a plasma storm. It had huge windows facing space and no real protection from electromagnetic energy. The station shook again as another wave of plasma lightning hit the hull. The sound was like thunder but louder and longer. It went on for minutes at a time. Dr. Nara showed them pictures from the storm on her tablet. Look at this data. The plasma is so thick you can't see through it. The electromagnetic field is stronger than anything we've measured before. Even our deepest space suits would fail in seconds up there. Hannah closed her eyes and tried not to think about Newton. But every time the station shook from another lightning strike, she pictured the small orange cat hiding somewhere in the darkness above them, waiting for help that might never come. The storm continued to rage outside their metal cave, and time moved slowly in the red emergency lighting of the bunkers. 48 hours had passed since the storm began. Hannah sat in the corner of the emergency bunker, staring at the metal wall. She had not slept much. Every time she closed her eyes, she thought about Newton alone somewhere in the dangerous upper levels. Dr. Nara Choi walked over with her tablet. Captain Yu, I have some news about your cat. Hannah looked up quickly. You found him? The storm has cleared enough in some areas for our sensors to work for short periods, Dr. Nara explained. We got a quick scan of the observatory deck 15 minutes ago. Hannah's heart started beating faster. And? There's a life sign in the main observation room. Small, warm-blooded. It has to be Newton. Relief flooded through Hannah like warm water. Newton was still alive. But then she realized what Dr. Nara was telling her. The observatory deck was the most dangerous place on the entire station. How long does he have? Hannah asked. Dr. Nara looked at her tablet screen. The storm is getting stronger, not weaker. The safe zones up there are getting smaller every hour. Maybe 6 hours before even the protected areas become too dangerous. Station Commander Jean Sato heard their conversation and walked over. Captain Yu, I know what you're thinking. But it's impossible. No one can survive a trip to the observatory deck. Tell me exactly why, Hannah said. Jean sat down next to her. The plasma lightning hits the upper decks every 3 seconds. Each strike has enough power to melt through a tank. The metal floors are heated to over 1,000 degrees. The air itself is filled with electricity that would stop your heart instantly. What about protective gear? Hannah asked. All our environmental suits have electronic systems, explained Dr. Nara. The electromagnetic field from the storm destroys anything electronic in seconds. Even our heaviest armor would become a death trap. Kim joined the group. He had been listening from nearby. The hallways up there are like the inside of a lightning bolt. No protection exists for what's happening up there. Hannah stood up and started pacing back and forth. There has to be a way. Hannah, listen to me, Kai Park said, grabbing her arm gently. I've run the numbers 3 times. The computer calculates 0% chance of survival. 0. Not low odds, not dangerous odds. 0. Computers don't know everything, Hannah replied. Lia Sung, the alien ambassador, approached them. Her blue skin looked worried. Captain Yu, I have seen plasma storms destroy entire planets. What you are considering is not brave. It is suicide. Newton trusted us, Hannah said quietly. He chose our ship as his home. We became his family. He's just an animal, Jean said. I'm sorry, but one cat's life is not worth a human life. Hannah turned to look at Jean with angry eyes. Newton is not just an animal. He's been with us for months. He made our crew happier. He made our ship feel like home instead of just a machine flying through space. Dr. Nara showed her tablet to the group. Look at these numbers from the last few months. Crew productivity increased by 15% after Newton joined us. Medical complaints dropped by 20%. Even our ship's AI systems work better now. That doesn't change the physics of the situation, Lia said. Plasma energy will destroy organic tissue in milliseconds. Hannah stopped pacing and sat back down. She put her head in her hands and thought hard. Everyone around her was right. Going to rescue Newton was impossible. The storm would kill her before she walked 10 meters into the upper levels. But every time she closed her eyes, she saw Newton's trusting green eyes. The cat had chosen them. He had survived 3 months alone on their ship because he believed they were his family. Now he was trapped and scared, waiting for help. What if I went without any equipment at all? Hannah asked suddenly. What do you mean? Kai asked. No protective suits, no electronic devices, no metal tools. Just me. Dr. Nara shook her head. That would make things worse, not better. You need protection from the heat and radiation. But metal conducts electricity, Hannah said. What if the protective gear is actually more dangerous in this storm? Tay thought about this. She might have a point. Metal suits would attract lightning like magnets. It doesn't matter, Jean said firmly. The heat alone would kill you. The floors are hot enough to cook meat. Hannah stood up again and started removing her boots. Humans walked on hot sand and sharp rocks for thousands of years before we had shoes. Hannah, what are you doing? Kai asked with concern in his voice. I'm going to get Newton, she said simply. The entire bunker became quiet. 300 people stopped talking and looked at her. Captain, Leah said slowly, your species may be tough, but this is beyond tough. This is impossible. Humans don't believe in impossible when it comes to protecting family, Hannah replied. She started taking off her outer uniform jacket. I need someone to map the shortest path to the observatory deck. I need to know exactly where Newton is hiding. And I need to understand the storm's pattern. Hannah, please think about this, Kai begged. We can't lose you too. You're not losing me, Hannah said with confidence she didn't completely feel. I'm going to walk up there, get Newton, and come back. Humans have survived worse things than lightning storms. Dr. Nara stared at her with wide eyes. No species has ever survived direct plasma exposure. No species has ever tried walking through one barefoot to save a cat, Hannah answered. She looked around at her crew, her friends, the people who had become her space family. Newton saved us first. He made us remember what it feels like to care about something. Now it's time for us to save him. The bunker remained silent as Hannah prepared to attempt the impossible. Hannah stood at the sealed blast doors that led to the upper levels. She wore only her basic uniform shirt and pants. No boots, no protective gear, no electronic devices. Her bare feet felt cold against the metal floor of the bunker. The storm pattern repeats every 47 seconds, Dr. Nara explained, looking at her tablet. You have about 8 seconds between lightning strikes to move. That's not much time. It's enough, Hannah said, though her heart was beating fast. Station Commander Jean tried one more time to stop her. Hannah, the metal floors up there are heated to over 1,000 degrees. You'll burn your feet on the first step. Human feet are tougher than you think, she replied. Our ancestors walked on hot rocks and burning sand. Kim held up a small device. This scanner found Newton's exact location. Observatory deck, section C7. He's hiding in a small maintenance closet. Hannah studied the station map one final time. The path to the observatory was 2 kilometers through corridors and up 3 levels. In normal conditions it would take 20 minutes to walk there. In this storm, every step would be a fight for survival. Remember, Dr. Nara said, move only during the quiet periods between lightning strikes. Stay away from windows and metal walls. The electromagnetic energy will be strongest near any large metal surfaces. Kai Park stepped forward. Hannah, if you're really doing this crazy thing, take this. He handed her a small piece of cloth. Wrap it around your eyes when the lightning gets too bright. You'll need to see where you're going. Hannah tied the cloth around her neck and took a deep breath. Open the doors. The blast doors slid open with a grinding sound. Hot air rushed into the bunker like opening an oven. The temperature difference hit Hannah like a wall. Sweat immediately started forming on her skin. She stepped through the doorway onto the hot metal floor. The heat burned the bottom of her feet, but not as badly as she expected. She had walked on hot beach sand as a child. This was worse but not impossible. Purple light flashed in the corridor ahead. The plasma lightning was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. It danced along the walls like electric snakes. Hannah started running. She had 8 seconds before the next lightning strike. The first bolt hit the corridor behind her just as she dove behind a support beam. The energy was so bright it hurt to look at even with her eyes closed. The sound was like 1,000 thunderstorms happening at once. She counted in her head. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Hannah ran again. Her feet were already getting burned from the hot metal, but she ignored the pain. Humans were good at ignoring pain when something important was at stake. The next lightning strike hit closer. The air around her became hot and thick. It was hard to breathe, like trying to breathe inside a fire. But she kept moving forward. By the time she reached the first stairway, her uniform shirt was starting to smoke from the heat. She pulled it off and threw it away. The cloth might catch fire and make things worse. Going up the stairs was harder. Each step burned her feet more than walking on flat surfaces. The metal was so hot she could smell her own skin burning. But Hannah had broken her leg once during a mining accident and still walked for 2 hours to get help. Pain was temporary. Newton needed her now. The second level was worse than the first. The storm was getting stronger, and the quiet periods between lightning strikes were getting shorter. Now she only had 5 seconds to move between safe spots. Hannah's hair started to burn away from the heat in the air. Her skin turned red, then darker. But she kept counting seconds and running between the lightning strikes. On the third level she could barely see. The bright flashes of lightning had hurt her eyes, even when she closed them. She used the cloth Kai gave her to protect her face and navigated by memory and touch. The corridor to the observatory deck was the longest and most dangerous part of the journey. Lightning struck the walls on both sides every few seconds. The metal glowed orange from heat. Hannah pressed herself against the floor and crawled forward during the quiet moments. The hot metal burned her stomach and chest, but crawling was safer than running. She could stay lower and avoid the worst of the electrical energy. Her feet were bleeding now, leaving small red marks on the floor. But human feet were designed for rough ground. Cave people had walked on sharp rocks and thorns for millions of years. This was just more of the same. Finally, she reached the observatory deck. Through the huge windows, she could see the plasma storm raging outside like an angry purple ocean. Lightning bolts the size of buildings struck the station's hull every few seconds. "Newton," she called out, though her voice was rough from breathing the hot air. A small sound came from the maintenance closet in section C7. Hannah crawled toward it, dodging another lightning strike that hit the window above her head. She opened the closet door and found Newton curled up in the corner. The small orange cat looked scared but unharmed. The maintenance closet had thick walls and no windows, which had protected him from the worst of the storm. "There you are, little friend," Hannah said softly. Newton ran to her immediately and climbed into her arms. He was warm and soft and alive. Now came the hard part. She had to carry Newton back through 2 kilometers of burning corridors and electrical storms. The return journey would be even more dangerous because she would need one hand to protect the cat. Hannah held Newton close to her chest and started the long walk home. The journey back through the storm was harder than anything Hannah had ever done. She held Newton close to her chest with one arm and used the other hand to feel her way through the burning corridors. The little cat stayed very still, as if he understood that both their lives depended on staying quiet and hidden. Her feet were so burned now that each step felt like walking on broken glass. The metal floors had gotten hotter during the time she spent finding Newton. But she kept moving forward, counting the seconds between lightning strikes. 3 seconds to run. Hide behind cover. 3 seconds to run again. Newton made small worried sounds when the lightning got very bright, but he trusted Hannah completely. He pressed his warm furry body against her chest and let her carry him through the electric hell above their heads. On the second level, Hannah's legs started shaking from exhaustion and pain. Her skin was burned red and black in many places. Parts of her hair were completely gone. But she could hear Newton's heartbeat against her chest, and that gave her strength to keep going. The worst moment came in the main corridor on the first level. A huge lightning bolt hit the ceiling right above them. Sparks and hot metal fell like rain. Hannah threw herself over Newton to protect him, and burning pieces of the ceiling hit her back and shoulders. She screamed from the pain but did not let go of Newton. When the lightning passed, she got up and kept walking. Newton looked at her with his green eyes and made a soft sound that seemed to say, "Thank you." Finally, after what felt like years, Hannah reached the blast doors to the emergency bunkers. She fell to her knees and hit the door with her free hand. She was too weak and hurt to shout. The doors opened immediately. Kai Park and Tae Kim had been waiting there since she left, watching and hoping. "Oh no," Kai said when he saw her. "Medical team. Now." Dr. Gina Han rushed forward with her emergency medical kit. Hannah's skin was burned over most of her body. Her feet were bleeding badly. Her hair was mostly gone and she could barely stand. But she was alive. And Newton was alive. "Take him," Hannah said weakly, holding Newton out to Kai. "Take care of him." Then she fell unconscious. For 3 weeks, Hannah stayed in the medical center. Her burns healed slowly with special treatments. The doctors said she would live, but she would have scars from the plasma burns for the rest of her life. Newton never left her side during her recovery. The cat slept on her hospital bed every night and sat with her during the day. When she was sad or in pain, Newton would purr and make her feel better. But something amazing was happening outside the medical center. The story of Hannah's rescue mission spread through the space station like wildfire. Then it spread to other stations, other planets, other star systems. Ambassador Lia Sung came to visit Hannah in the hospital. Captain Yu, I need to tell you something. Your story has traveled very far. What do you mean? Hannah asked, gently petting Newton. The news networks have told your story on 47 different planets. Humans walking barefoot through plasma storms to save small animals has become famous across the galaxy. Dr. Nara brought her tablet to show Hannah the news reports. Videos of the plasma storm played next to pictures of Hannah and Newton. Headlines in dozens of alien languages all said similar things. Human walks through hell for cat, and the impossible rescue. It gets better, Leah continued with a smile. The Galactic Council had an emergency meeting yesterday. They have officially added new words to the Universal Translator. What words? Hannah asked. Human stubborn, Leah replied. It means doing something impossible because you love someone, even when everyone says it cannot be done. Kai Park brought more news the next day. Hannah, you're not going to believe this. They're building a statue. A statue of what? Of you carrying Newton through the storm. It's going to be placed at the main entrance to Kepler 7 station. Hannah looked down at Newton, who was sleeping peacefully on her hospital bed. That seems a bit much for rescuing one cat. You don't understand, Tae Kim said, joining the conversation. This isn't just about Newton anymore. Other species have been watching humans for years, trying to understand what makes us different. Now they know. What do you mean? We will risk everything for something we love, Tae explained. Even if that something is small and can't help us back. Other species think with pure logic. But humans think with their hearts too. Station Commander Jean visited on Hannah's last day in the medical center. The story has reached Earth, he told her. Your rescue mission is being taught in schools as an example of human courage. I just went to get my cat, Hannah said simply. That's exactly why it matters, Jean replied. You didn't save a city or stop a war. You walked through hell to save one small life that meant something to you. That's what makes it special. 3 months later, Hannah stood in front of the new statue at the station entrance. It showed a woman with burned skin and no shoes, holding a small cat against her chest. Lightning bolts made of metal surrounded them both. The inscription at the bottom was written in 12 different languages. It said, Human stubborn, when love matters more than logic. Newton sat on Hannah's shoulder as she read the inscription. He purred loudly as if he approved of all the attention. We're famous now, little friend, she said to him. The whole galaxy knows about our adventure. Newton just blinked his green eyes slowly and continued purring. 4 years afterward, when alien species wanted to understand humans, they were told about Captain Hannah Yu and Newton the cat. The story became a legend that spread to every corner of the galaxy. And in every version of the story, the message was the same. Humans will walk through hell itself for those they love, no matter how small or helpless they might be.